Welcome to the COVID updates for employers and employees and foreign workers. Let's give a few minutes to have people join in, and hope you all had a safe and good Father's Day celebration this weekend. I know I did. It was nice to have my father here with us while we celebrate. And it's, wow, oops, go back. Just like I said, give it a few minutes to have people join. And today I wanted to do our updates just a little bit differently than we've been doing. I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to actually, have a Q&A where we can, oops, I wanted to stop sharing. Stop share, there we go. I wanted to have a Q&A so that we can all you all get the opportunity to ask your questions. And if you can do it by raising your hand, that would be great. And then what I can do is, we've got a question. Banu Chaudhry, let's see. Banu. Hello?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes. I thought that, see, I want to make sure. Okay, good. You are able to talk. Okay, wonderful. So please tell me, what's your question today?
My uncle, he sponsored a green card from my mother. So she's my sister, she's my mother. So now I am 22 years old. So am I eligible for CSPA category?
Well, it would depend. How long was the petition pending?
The priority date is July 5th and April date is 2009. So I have like 4 years and 5 months for CSPA calculator. That's what I calculated with the CSPA calculator. So,
but you have to be, okay, so the way the CSP calculation works is, for those who don't know, it's the Child Protection Act. So for what it does is it effectively freezes your date while the petition is pending, whether it's an I-130 or it's an I-140. It's frozen until it's approved. So during the time that it has been pending, that is time that you can add on to your, or subtract from your age. And you have to, within that time period, whatever that CSP calculation is, you have to, within 1 year of that, be able to either adjust status or, initiate your immigrant visa processing overseas. So, Banu, if you email us at info@chellalaw.com, and I'm going to type that here so everyone can see, I can send you some information about the CSP, and depending upon how long, like I said, the I-130 itself is pending and how long you have before you're eligible, the numbers. We had heard recently that USCIS is sending very few petitions over to the Department or the NVC. So because the petitions are taking so long and they're not being processed, the backlog will increase even more. So assuming that the backlog does not increase even more, then you can kind of go guesstimate based on what it is you have. Um, any more questions, Vana?
No, the predictions shows that my date will be current by this November.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 4 years and 4 months left, which that ends on next September. So if
Mm-hmm.
my date becomes current, can I able to adjust my status immediately?
You should be, yeah.
Okay, because right now I'm on student visa.
Mm-hmm.
So
No,
yeah,
but still, you'll still be able to, like I said, email me and uh, I'll be happy to kind of work through what it is you need to do and how you should prepare for that at
okay,
info.
I will email you. Thank you. And last one more question, ma'am. So if I start this process by adjusting my status, so how long, how fast I can get my EAD or my green card, something like that?
Yeah, well, the EADs are taking about 5 to 6 months currently.
What if I age out?
Age out is 21.
Okay,
So you would, during the time that the I-130 was pending, it basically freezes your age. So you would add that, you would subtract that from 21, and that's the time period you have in which you can file for adjustment of status, or within that year, or initiate your immigrant visa processing.
okay, ma'am.
I,
Thank you.
it looks like from what you've told me that you seem to be well in order, but like I said, I'd be happy to kind of take a look at your I-130 and give you my assessment, as well as give you some information on what you need to do to prepare to go forward.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, next, who has the next question? Do we have any more raised hands? Because I know that we've got somebody on the, and I'm going to assume that these people don't want to speak up, so they wanted to do it on the Q&A, but I will answer it live. With the news that the H-1B visas may be suspended for the rest of the year, our company has H-1B that expires in February 2021, and we would begin the extension process with you in about August. Well, that, we had done a session a couple of weeks ago on what the limitations are with the, what the president can and cannot do in terms of, pursuant to executive orders. So it would be kind of hard for the president to be able to stop extensions. He may be able to do something with new hires, tying it to something else, but truly 212F only allows him to control the entry of foreign nationals. Everything else is got to be left. Anything major has to be a congressional action. And so even if he were to try to put some restrictions in place, I'm pretty sure it would be challenged. And just to give you an update, if you remember, there was some rumors, especially last week, about halting immigrant processing for foreign nationals who are in the United States. And that's been since the same source that outlined that it was had reported that it is not the case, that they are continuing to process immigrant visas. So it should not affect your processing, but we will definitely keep you posted. And I hope you are on our newsletter for updates, and connected to us on social media. And I really do, and that's why this week I thought it would be important, even if there wasn't much to report, that we have a Q&A so that questions can be answered. I visit a lot of forums, and I know that there are there's still lots of confusion out there, and we're hoping that this can be our way of providing some clarity. Next question: how long does it typically take to hear back from you once we reach out for you? That is a good question. Last week, I had some, unfortunately, I had to take my parents to the doctor and some health issues, but I'm dedicating my time today to make sure that I sit down and answer all the questions that come up. So you should hear from me today, and thank you for being so patient. I usually, take time during the weekend to also, Sunday's usually my day to catch up on things that I couldn't catch up on during the week, but because it was Father's Day, I kind of wanted to spend it with my father. But you will get an answer today. Thank you for your team diligence on the L1 initial and extension. Are there any L1A to I-140 considerations for executives of firms? Absolutely. And usually that's typically initiated after the extension, because you always want to have a safety net, right? Whatever you're doing, any type of immigration, you want to make sure that you, in addition to, being able to go through the permanent resident process, you've got a safety net in case something were to go wrong. But knock on wood, we haven't had any EB1 denial. So the process for a multinational manager to get a permanent residence card is called, it's the employment-based first preference, EB1C. And although the requirements are similar to that of an L1A, the threshold's a little higher. As I've always said, anytime you're dealing with a non-immigrant classification where there is something similar in the immigrant classification, even though the criteria is the same, the threshold is going to be a little bit higher. But if you're, if we've just filed for your extension, I think this is a good time to look at, how that processing would, the success of it, or what is it that we can build. So I'm happy to talk to you about that to see what next steps are for EB1C. And unfortunately for EB1C, there's no premium processing, so it'd have to go through a regular process. So it, like I said, it may be a good time to go ahead and initiate that. Would this new regulations have any impact on H-1B extensions that are due this year? Like I said, it would be very hard pressed for the president to be able to impact extensions through an executive order. So I don't believe, and we're keeping, I even looked this morning, everyone predicted that there would be something this weekend and latest by Monday. But a few minutes before our webinar, I checked and there was no update on this. So, and I think that's part of what they're struggling with is what is it that they can do legally for this process. So next question, can you please update me about a question that I asked? All I want is to study master's degree here. I did a bachelor's degree from India. I don't have any visa issues. Yes, Kieran, I remember you. I wanted to pull some information for you based on, some of the Brookings Institute predictions and other sources. And so I'll get that to you today. I didn't want to just send you what my thoughts are, but I thought I would, at least we are often assessing here, because I speak, quite often on immigration and the benefit to the economy. And when we're doing that, we talk about, what job openings are, what are exactly, who is the one, who are, what are the positions that affect the people who are unemployed? Because the idea is that the unemployment numbers have no reflection on really some of the, they say highly skilled, but I would say rare skilled positions that we have. So it really shouldn't affect, unemployment should not be a reason that we curb immigration. So in doing that, we often pull a lot of data, and within that data is, where are the jobs going to be in the future? So I'll get that to you later today. Is there any opportunities to convert a B1, B2 to a green card? No, unless, marriage to a US citizen would probably be the only one to a green card automatically. And I'll tell you why. In order there's the filing of the green, permanent residence petition, and then you have to file a an adjustment of status. And so in order for you to be eligible for adjustment of status, you have to be in a valid status yourself. And your B1, B2, even if you get it extended for 6 months, you won't even know that the extension was approved because they're taking so long until much later. So there could be, because of that unique processing time issue, it's not easy to convert a B1, B2 to permanent residency. Hi, ma'am, my petition is approved, but I'm outside the country. I came to India on a family emergency and got stuck here. My Dropbox is pending. We have no date on when they will reopen. Yeah, they are supposed to be slowly reopening, and I know that recently a couple of our clients obtained appointments, but they were all for September. So they are incredibly backlogged. You may be, because you've already done the Dropbox, you may be able to hear from them soon, especially if you're exempt from the actual visa interview. So hopefully, and we will, if you haven't subscribed to our immigration updates, please do. I'm in contact with the consulates constantly. I've spoken on stage with all the Indian consulates over the past couple of years. So I've got a pretty good relationship with them. And so we're in contact with them to try to see what's the latest and what's going on. But if you haven't signed up for our updates, please do. And that way you can be assured that you get the latest information. And you all can raise your hand and ask those questions orally if you like. You don't have to type them out. Either way, whatever you prefer. Okay, we've got a couple of hands raised. So let me put the Q&A down for a second and try to get some of the people that have raised their hands. Let's see. Javed Saburi. Yes, sir. How can I help you?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can now. It's a little fuzzy, but I think it's gotten better.
Okay. So I'm asylum seeker, and I applied in April 2016, and then things changed from FIFO to LIFO, and that affected me badly. I was almost going to get my interview, and now it's uncertain for me when am I going to get the interview, because more and more applications are coming in. So is there anything USCIS is doing to address people who are stuck in the backlog? It's also, I believe it's a violation of the human rights. We come here for protection, and then we are in this dilemma of what's happening to us. We have our families left back in the from the countries we have come from. Our parents are there. We cannot attend the happiness. We cannot attend the any occasion, nothing, and we are
You're in
stuck
limbo.
in the middle. So
yeah,
yeah, it's a dilemma. Just one point to add, apart from the steps you may know that USS is taking to at least address those who are stuck for a few years, not few months, I would say, but at least few years. It's my now almost 5th year that I'm stuck into the system. There's a premium for H1B, I guess. You pay a premium and then it's processed quicker. Is there a possibility that USCIS or the lawyers or attorneys approach them and get a petition from the asylum seekers, those who want to pay a premium? I'm ready to pay a certain amount. Of course, I'm not able to pay maybe a huge amount, but a certain amount to process my case. I'm not saying approve it. I'm saying at least look at it.
Unfortunately, no. And we currently have an administration that is trying to, at every level, really break down our asylum process. So first of all, we don't have a sympathetic ear in this administration. Number two, the backlogs are not just with asylum, they're across the board. And, unfortunately, because of the nature of asylum and its process, they will not premium process it. So, you know, I feel your pain. I know it's hard when you're in limbo at any point, and it's even more so when you are here on asylum. And if I know of anything, I'll make sure that, you know, we get that information out. But I can tell you right now, there is, like I said, not much sympathy for asylum seekers in this administration. And it is a system that has, even before COVID, was substantially backlogged. And there's been a lot of, you know, the American Immigration Lawyers Association has been trying to do a lot of lobbying on that end to, you know, for the very reasons that you've outlined. But I'm afraid it's probably going to be on deaf ears unless, you know, Congress steps in.
Yeah, so that was exactly my question. Is there a way like to reach to Congress? Like I have reached out to the congressman from our area and given him my say application or the letter or my concerns, and but again he's just one person, and he is of certain thoughts maybe on the immigration and asylum himself. So
Right.
but if attorneys who are or human rights activists or immigration activists put a petition and which can be signed by both sides, the immigrants, asylum seekers, and the attorneys themselves. So like go with a bigger number to Congress to step in.
And I think it's going to be hard in an election year. I think we've got a lot of Senate seats that are coming up. You've got the presidential election. Mitch McConnell is sitting on God knows how many different types of bills. Nothing is getting through. So I do think, though, that if we do change administrations in November, you'll see a substantial change in the process. I know that doesn't give you any hope in the current immediacy, but I do believe, fingers crossed, that there will be a change and we can see some positive effects of that in the future.
Let's hope so.
Yes, yes. But like I said, I understand your, and if I ever have any information that may be of help to you, I'll make sure to send it out. Just, you know, either email me or subscribe to our updates. And, you know, if there's anything on the latest, you know, we've been keeping track of what the lobbying efforts are. And if we see any impact or penetration, then, you know, we can make sure that the information gets out to you.
Okay. Yeah, that would be it. And thank you for your efforts, and thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Next, let's see what Bhavesh has to say. Bhavesh, you're going to have to unmute in order to talk. There we go.
Yeah, basically my answer related to the, like, you know, I am having a B1, B2 visa. Any opportunity or any chances to convert that B1, B2 in L1, L2 or something like in, from where we can get the like permanent residence in the US?
Right. Now, you can change, you can't, I answered earlier, you can't jump from a B1, B2 to permanent residency immediately, but you can change it to a non-immigrant visa. So if you have a company overseas and you set up a new company in the United States, then, and it meets all the other criteria, then you would have a chance to be able to change your status from B1, B2 to L1. A couple of things about changing your status when you enter on a B1, B2. Whatever you do, whether it's a marriage-based or you're changing to a non-immigrant visa or whatever you're doing, you don't want to do anything within the first 60 days of entry. The administration had put forth, I think it was probably early on when President Trump took office, that if anyone changes their status after entering on a B1, B2 within the first 60 days, it's going to be deemed that it was a preconceived intent to change status. So you want to wait 60 days. But if you meet the other criteria, then you may be able to change to, an L1. Bhavesh, if you want to email me, I'd be happy to send you what the criteria is for an L1, so you can see whether you would, it would that you can meet those criteria. And from an L1, there is a path to permanent residency. Okay. So email us and I'll send you the information. And like I said, today is dedicated to answering all. And the reason why my email address is not, my direct email is not in any way hidden. It's lchalla@challalaw.com, but info at Challa goes to a couple of different people, so we can make sure that the questions are getting answered. But I wanted to take this on myself as a personal commitment to helping people that have questions. Like I said, it just, Father's Day kind of screwed me up a little bit this weekend, but that is what I'm going to be focusing on today. Yeah. So if I'll send out the criteria to you if you can email me.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Bhavesh. Now, next we have Madhu. Hi, Madhu.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you. I am on an L1A and I was recently laid off because of the COVID situation. And my company also applied for H1B last year, which was approved. But it is an I-797B approval notice.
Consular processing.
Consular processing. And now I'm looking at transferring my H1 to another company. And what are my chances of, getting the change of status since I'm already in the country, instead of leaving the country with all these, news going on about H1B cancellation and traveling from another country or traveling from India to the US, with all these challenges or things going on. So what are your thoughts on that? And
Great question. Great question. So typically, if you have had an approved H1B in a previous quota year within the past 6 years, you're exempt from the quota going forward. Now, there have been, the USCIS had originally issued RFEs saying, hey, if you've never visa processed and you've never entered on the H1, then you're not eligible for the exemption. And we've been pretty successful in overcoming that, because that's not in the regulations. That's not, they just say if your petition has been approved, the way the regulations state with regard to H1B quota. So you should be able to do that. The issue is going to be, how long have you been laid off? Because you've got to maintain status in order to change status in the US.
Right. I will be out of status, in a couple of days.
Okay. So do you have any employer lined up to file for your H1B?
Yes, ma'am. I have an employer who's ready to file for H1B.
Okay. So I would suggest to try to get them to get that started as soon as possible. And like I said, even though there's sometimes they issue an RFE with regard to, the fact that you've never really held H1B status. There's no regulatory authority for that. So you should be able to overcome it.
And would they, since the approved one is in consulate or consular processing, would I still have to go through the stamping process, or can they file it as in change of status?
No, you should be able to change your status in the US.
Okay.
And the good news is, and if you didn't catch it, we had one of our webinars was specifically on status changes. And if you look at the YouTube video, it tells you some of the protections you have. So while your petition is pending, you're in a stay authorized by the Attorney General. So, to that extent, take a look at that video.
Sure.
That should help you with, any concerns that you have about what happens if, you know, it's pending and the petition gets approved, but the change of status gets denied, right? So you'll know that you were in a stay authorized by the Attorney General as long as you file prior to your expiration of status. So you should be in good shape.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt if, you know, they would be able to, you know, file it before the 60-day period, because the LCA approval and all those things have to come through. So it'll be out of
it only takes a week. So if they've been doing this, they should be able to turn out an H1. The average time you should, if all the information is given. Now, the biggest problem is this a consulting company that you're going to be working for?
It is a staffing company, yes.
Okay, yeah. So their biggest challenge is always trying to get the, you know, the contracts and, you know, the SOW and things like that. That's usually where the delay is. But if, you know, if they can move it pretty quickly, then they should be able to file within a week. LCAs get certified within 1 week.
Right. Yeah, because they keep saying I have to leave the country for you know, the H1B, because the current H1B is consulate processing. They cannot do a change of status. So I'm just confused, or I don't know how to proceed further.
Okay, Mother, why don't you email me as well?
Sure, ma'am.
And I'll send you what the directive is on that.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
And I'll check, I mean, I know that we have in the past been successful, but I'll check. I've got an attorney that heads up our H1Bs, so I'll check with him to see if there's been any change.
Sure, ma'am. Okay, I will send an email.
Okay,
thank you so much.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Okay, and so, so there we go. Do we have, I don't think, I'm going to go back to the Q&A because I believe we've got a lot of questions. Let me see. Okay. The next question is, I have been married with my wife, March 2019, filed in May 2019. I had my interview in Virginia, January 2020. After the interview, we got an RFE, which we responded in January 23, 2020. Since then, I haven't heard anything from the USCIS. Well, you should probably hear sometime fairly soon, because all the, you know, it was pre-COVID that you submitted it. It usually takes them about 60 days, which would have put it right at the time where everything was shutting down. So you should expect to hear something. You may want to see if you can get an info pass or send them a letter through Federal Express to see, you know, to kind of poke them a little bit and see, remind them that your petition is pending. That may be your best way to respond to, you know, the backlog. But everything is going to be, as we're dealing with right now, especially at the USCIS application centers, there's a tremendous backlog. Next question from Nudin. You said that the executive order should not affect H1 extensions. Do you see it affecting F1 OPT STEM renewals? I think it, like I said, when somebody's already been given a non-immigrant classification, and attached to that is the expectancy that it's going to be, that you have the ability to renew it. There's something called promissory estoppel, which says that, hey, you know, you promised me that I could get this renewed, and now all of a sudden, you know, you can't take it out midway. So they may try to do that, but again, I think it's going to be challenged. And if it's going to be challenged, it's going to take some time for them to, you know, there's going to be a stay of the executive order. So they won't be able to go forward. Now, they may try to have some restrictions placed on new OPTs or new STEM OPTs, but I don't see it really affecting extensions. Again, you know, we are, especially with the student-based changes, we're keeping track on what those are. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the updates, because even I send those out, if it's on the weekend or something, just to make sure that the information gets out in a timely manner. So good luck to you, Nadan. We'll keep you posted if there's any changes to that. And the next question is, I have my interview postponed for the green card in April, but there are no updates the last 2 months. Should I apply for an EAD since my H1 expires, or should I apply for an H extension, which is much safer? You can apply for both. I tell you what the benefit is in applying for the H-1B extension. You want to make sure that that you've got the continuity of an employment authorized status, right? You want to make sure that there's no break in your ability to work. And so therefore, the difference between the EAD and the H-1 extension is the H-1 extension, once you file it, okay, and this was covered in our status webinar that's on our YouTube channel. So if you want, you can take a look at that. But once you file it, you have 240 days while it's pending for you to have a work authorized status in the United States. 240 days from the expiration of your I-94 card. So if it expires in October, from October, 240 days, you'll have that you can work. And so that way, you don't have that same provision with the EAD. You have to have the approved EAD in your hand in order to have continued authorization to work. So in that sense, strategy-wise, it makes more sense to file the extension, because that way you are assured that you have, the ability to continue working. I hope that helps. Take a look at the YouTube. We cover extensions and that's the one that deals with status changes. So that should help you out. Otherwise, shoot us an email if you've got any questions. Abir, congratulations, the extension was approved. I'm not surprised. We do good work. I think it's now a good time to talk about your permanent residence options, but that's great to hear. I have my meeting with the team is tomorrow, so I guess I would have heard about it then, but it's, I'm really thrilled. Hello, ma'am, this is Bonnie Chiller. Can you please? I stay local, so I'll be able to meet you after you review my file. We're not doing any in-person. We're still trying to be very careful with, because of the COVID stuff. So all my meetings are Zoom meetings, but you can send me an email to my personal email, which is lchella@chellalaw.com. But like I said, you will get more people's eyes on the email if you send it to info@chellalaw.com, because at info, we've got at least 4 people that get that same email. Next person, thanks, Lakshmi. Glad to hear this. Yes. And next question. Sorry, does the new H-1 rule impact people outside the country? I came to India on a family emergency and awaiting consulates to reopen for Dropbox. My family's in the US. Well, we haven't heard what the executive order is going to be yet. We have no idea how they're going to be able to curb people who are, already approved on an H-1. But if you subscribe to our updates, as soon as, like I said, I'm constantly, I get alerts, but even then I go out and I, try to find out what the latest is. So if you sign up for updates, you'll know as soon as I know what the answer to or what the restrictions are in terms of the executive orders. Is there any regulation permitting people to stay longer than the grace period if flights to their country are suspended. What I would suggest that you do is file for a change of status either to a B1 or F1. If you're saying grace period, I'm assuming that you're either on an F1 or H1B. So if you are unable to travel due to travel restrictions, then what I would do is go ahead and file for a change of status to a B1 and cite the fact that that means in your application outline that the reason that you're requesting this is because you're unable to travel outside the country. I hope that helps. What is the priority date for EBC for Indian executives? They're expecting that to be current in Oppenheimer, who is the one from the Department of State that deals with all of this, is saying that it should be current. There's not a tremendous backlog, but it should be current in a couple of months. What are the possible impacts due to in-flight transfers and renewals due to the executive order? Again, we don't know what the executive order is yet. There's just been high speculation that there'll be additional restrictions, but like I said, sign up. As soon as I know, you'll know, I promise. Please, again, another question on the executive order. We don't know what it is yet. We had outlined a couple of, I think it was not last Monday webinar, but the webinar before, on what the president really is permitted to do and what he can't do through his executive power. But we have to wait until it is actually, published that we would be able to do this. So there's certain limitations, and I'm just going to recap what we talked about in that particular, because there seems to be a lot of questions on this. There's certain limitations that the president can do pursuant to an executive order. There are things that an agency can do, imposing restrictions and changing regulations, things like that. Everything else is under the purview of Congress if it's a major change. So the executive orders is limiting. Typically it's just entry, but we'll have to see. They have in the past, when the banking crisis took place, made some restrictions, not on the immigration side, but the ability to get for the banks to get the bailout. Some restrictions in immigration were outlined in that. And then you have what the agencies can do. So the USCIS, even if the USCIS wants to impose any change in their regulations, they have to go through a notice and comment period. And so if you don't do that, it'll be struck down because it is not following the Administrative Procedures Act. So we've got to wait to see what exactly will come up, but you're welcome, Abir. Whatever, whenever I know, I promise you'll know. As long as you're connected to us on either social media or you signed up for our updates, because it was hard to reach out to everybody. But when I respond to, if you email me today, when I respond, in my email, you will see that there's buttons to try to make it as easy as possible. You click on that, it takes you to a place where you can either subscribe to our newsletter or follow us on social media. Good evening. Is any impact on EB-5 processing because of the latest government decisions? No, not. If you notice that even with immigrant processing, they gave a special consideration to EB-5 filings. So I think that we can see that there is a favoritism, and it could be because the president's son-in-law's sister is involved with EB-5. But so I don't see any additional restrictions for EB-5 right now. Ma'am, can you tell me when the embassy is going to open in India and Hyderabad? It's hard to tell because it's, what they have assigned is they've said it is up to the individual countries because each country is impacted by COVID differently. And if you've been keeping track, India's numbers are just on the rise. But we are keeping an eye on that. I've got a lot of clients who are in India waiting for the consulates to open so they can visa process, and we will keep you posted. I have an H-1B visa stamping until 2022, but my Indian passport expires in October 2020. My I-94 card also only admitted me till October 2020. What are my options? Apply with an extension with a new passport, go out and come back into the United States with a new passport before. I would go ahead and file the H-1B because it doesn't matter how long your visa is. What dictates your ability to stay in the United States is your I-94 card. That is what governs your legal status in the US. So I would file your H-1B extension because you're only admitted to October 2020. You can file for it now with a new passport. You can get your passport here in the United States. Well, I file for a new passport, get that, and then file for your extension. I hope that helps. Email us if you've got any additional questions. If all we have is an executive order to block the transfer, we don't, it is very difficult, again, for the government to be able to rescind a status that's already been afforded to people in the United States. They can impose additional restrictions on anyone newly seeking that status. They can impose some restrictions on perhaps, how you can, what the employer has to do in order for you to get the extension of that status. But they can't do away with the classification. So again, we're gonna have to wait and see what the executive order says. I'm working from India for a current company from March due to the consulates closed for COVID. My current H1 expires in August. If they file for an extension, can I continue working for them from India till it's approved on US payroll? Yes, if you file for the extension, yes, that shouldn't be a problem. We had formed an LLC staffing firm in 2016. We are maintaining the firm from India, and as of now, the company is running excellent. Congratulations. So we are directors for that company. What are the chances of getting a visa for us apart from the B1? We got our well, you probably got a federal federal tax ID number for your company and are paying taxes. Very good. You should be able to file, depending upon the size and structure and how you're going to grow. It seems like you're doing well, but there are some very specific concerns with how many employees you have, the staffing that is really critical for an L1A application. So Mr. Anonymous Attendee, if you want to email me privately, I can tell you what you'd need to do. And, I think you might have heard someone that one of our clients just informed me that their extension was approved on the L1A. So our success rate in this is bar none. We're really good at especially new office L1As, even out of India, where the denial rate is highest in the world. The denial rate for L1As is high. Denial rate for L1As out of India is even higher. But we've been successful because I think there's a secret sauce to having a successful L1A. And I don't mind sharing my secret sauce, even if you are using another attorney. But if you email me, I'll give you some tips to help you navigate through that process. Okay, it seems like we have answered all the questions. is there, let me see if anybody had, I think we answered all the chat questions. My H-1B is expiring in 2021. Will that be okay? Yeah, anything that's related to the executive order, please, you know, like I said, subscribe to our, you know, our newsletter today, because as soon as it comes out, what I do is I just don't say, here's the executive order, because anyone can do that. What I try to do is make sure that the executive, you know, that what we outline for you is something that can be helpful in terms of giving you some strategies on how to navigate through that. So, you know, what I tell people is, you know, as we're going through all these changes, oops, the key thing is you got to be proactive. You got to stay informed. This is your immigration. You're responsible for your immigration status. So make sure you have all of the information and then prepare for an immigration strategy. You know, there's nothing that can come up that there is not a solution to that problem. I don't believe that there is. I think you can be creative and come up with ways to navigate these troubled times. But you got to stay informed, because you've got to know that there's an issue that you need to address in order for you to be able to do that in a timely manner. Secondly, like I said, here's a way in which you can sign up for our latest immigration updates. And if you email us at info, I'll send you out, you know, with my email on the bottom, there's literally a button you press and you can make sure that you're subscribed to our latest information. And today we will keep our ear out to see if there's anything on, you know, the new restrictions. So today would be a good day to sign up if you haven't already. And we will have so next Monday, if there is new restrictions and new executive orders, that is what our, you know, entire Monday webinar will be dedicated to, is answering those questions. And so if you've enjoyed the webinar today, if you found our information helpful, please comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I would love to, you know, I love these interactions. I love to be able to talk to folks and help them achieve their immigration objective. The email again is info@challalaw.com. And so, you know, let us know. I think there's 2 more questions and we've got a couple of minutes. How can I reach out to your group to evaluate my case for an EB1 self-sponsor? In the subject line, put EB1 evaluation and send it to info@challalaw.com. And like I said, I'm doing 2 things. I've got 2 objectives today. One is to make sure that I take a look at all the info at Challa emails. And then secondly, I'm going to be keeping track of what's going on with the executive orders. So, you know, today's a perfect day because I will be focused just on that to reach out to me. So info@challalaw.com. It may not be a bad idea if you want me to review the EB1 for self-sponsor. If you send me your CV, your latest, with all your updated information, that would be really helpful. When you get a chance, can you circle back with John to move forward with the, absolutely. I will be speaking with him tomorrow, and you know, we can go over that, and I'll make sure that he reaches out to you shortly afterwards. And he says, I've got to read this. This is FYI to all reading. Lakshmi's team is the best and highly recommended. I've used many other firms and they are the best at their game. Well, thank you so much, Abir. Again, congratulations on your L1 extension, and I think it's time now that we move you on to getting your permanent residence very shortly. And if there are any other questions that we haven't had a chance to answer, email us. And like I said, today's the perfect day to do that because I will be answering all those info@Challa Law emails today. And like I said, at the bottom, there's a subscribe button, because as soon as we hear about any change in executive order, you will get an email from me, not only on what the executive order is, but how it can impact you. And when I hear these Q&As, that's why I like to do Q&As, is because then I know what the issues are. What are the things you're worried about? And I can make sure that in our memo that highlights this, that we can address those questions. You all have a safe week, and stay safe. You know, then even though communities are opening up, it is still, the cases are going up. So, you know, you still have to make sure that you maintain some safety. And I hope to see you again next week. Until then, this is Lakshmi Challa wishing you the very best. Take care.